Subject of today's video is a 93 Chevy S10 pickup. This one happens to be two-wheel drive. It's got the 4.3 and the automatic. And I'm going to replace the fan clutch. The symptoms are in the very heat of summer when I'm towing and I have the air conditioning on. The temperature climbs a little more than I'd like to see. And this is a thermostatic type clutch, which means it's sensing the temperature of the engine through the air that comes back from the radiator. It's sensing that, and it grabs onto the shaft. It's not directly mounted. It grabs onto the shaft. It can slip for fuel efficiency, or it can grab. And I don't think it's grabbing all the way anymore. So let's change out that air conditioning thermostatic clutch. So for those that have never seen one, it's a very simple device. You bolt this side to the back of the water pump, which gives it spinning power, and you can see it can slip. It's very hard when you're just standing here, but it gets much more fluid as it works. And then this is where the fan bolts to, and it can, once this thing senses heat, this little coil here, it'll grab onto that shaft 100% and spin the fan full speed. Normally it can just slip the fan a little bit. It can spin while the fan doesn't. The good news is for us, this only is going to require some basic hand tools. It's a little bit of a delicate operation. You don't want to poke a hole in your radiator, obviously. So let's start by just getting this top radiator cover off. Shroud, fan shroud, whatever you want to call it. Couple down there. One of mine's missing, so you won't hear it come out as much as it should. You probably really can't see me, but I'm over there doing the ones on the other side going down. And that one was already broken out of its housing. And the back one seems to be missing. Nice. This is what happens to these. The ends break out of them. They get brittle. Lots of heating and cooling cycles. So as we can see, here's our prize of what we're looking for. You can't really tell if they're bad or not. It seems to grab, you know, but it's really about when they get hot, will they grab? It gets very fluid once it gets moving. And that's for energy efficiency as you get out on the road. But then it's supposed to grab 100% under load, you know, when it starts sensing the heat coming to it. And I just don't think it's grabbing all the way. They don't last forever. Try to get you zoomed in there best I can. Looks like this one's been changed before, or maybe that was for when the water pump was replaced. I see some apprentice marks on the bolts here, the nuts, and these weren't terribly tight. And I'm seeing mine are studs. And what the problem is that just happened is the stud backed out and the nut backed out. And it's bottoming out. Well, I'm just going to have to let that hang, and I'll pull it out and put the studs back in later. It backed up and it won't come all the way out if I'm not describing that well. I painted myself into a corner by backing out the bolt all the way to the end. And this is the buggered up one. And let me try a different one. That one's not working out. I don't think these are metric. The first one came off perfectly with 1/2 inch. Could they be some are, some aren't? Would somebody have done that? No. No, I got it. Now it's moving. I'll get all those nuts off, and I'll bring you back. All right, I got the bolts out. Now I will very carefully not poke a hole in the radiator. Get that off the studs that are remaining. And we'll get this thing up here. Nice. So this is the pulley that spins it and the water pump. And these studs have a tendency to back out. So I need to tighten those all, and I need to get the other two first, and then I'll be able to put it on and put the nuts on them. So in case I wasn't describing what I meant when I backed myself into a corner, what happened here was the stud was coming out like this one. The stud was coming out and the nut was coming out. So at a certain point, you couldn't get it out any farther. So now that I've got it here, I can separate them properly. And just in case you had yours fully apart, these are not symmetrical. They have longer threads on one side and shorter threads on the other. On mine, the shorter threads go into the back of the water pump part, and the long threads go through this adapter. Now it's just a matter of taking 4 bolts off. If you have impact, that's the best, because you don't want to bend these blades trying to hold back on the wrench. If anything's loose on those blades, just replace the whole blade. The whole assembly, I mean, not the blade, the whole fan. And that one's going to be a booger. There it goes. Nice. Our new assembly ready. Take it just like it is. Transfer it over. Bolt holes line up. We're off to a good start. I'll bolt that on, bring you back. Retorqued. Ready to go back on the engine. Alright, I got my new fan clutch. Original fan back on it. Very carefully fish this down. And she slips on. And I'll bring you back when I get those all tight. All right, as you can see, shiny new fan clutch, tightened up all around. Now I just got to try to wiggle this shroud, guard, whatever, back in. And there are little pads in here that go on the radiator ears there. Trying not to force it. Let's get this hose out of the way temporarily. That's what we needed. Nice. I'm just going to put one hand tight up here just to get us in the neighborhood. And I'll just bolt all those back down. I'm going to give that blade just a few spins just to make sure we're not hitting anywhere. We got our thing back off the alternator so it doesn't get chopped. I think we're ready for a restart. Now, if it's a good working fan, you should hear more of a roar when it first starts, and then after about a minute of running, that should go away. The roar is that it's grabbing and running the fan full speed. Once it heats up a little bit, it'll go away until it's needed to grab the heat out of the radiator. It'll spin on the shaft or freewheel somewhat. It'll always be spinning, but not full speed. So you'll hear a little roar usually, like when you first start out, and then after a minute or so, that'll go away. The roar is normal. So you should hear a little bit of roar whenever you start it, and for the first minute or so as you're first going down the road. And then once the fan clutch starts going, it'll release somewhat. And then the only other time you'll hear that heavy roar, which is the fan turning at full speed, is when it's gathering that there's a lot of heat coming from the radiator that's not getting expelled. Then it'll grab full speed on that shaft again. Probably can't hear the roar right now, but I'm going to try to make it roar. And that roar will go away somewhat. It just does that when you first start it. I hereby declare that fan clutch Wildwood certified. Thanks for watching.